I can't tell you how important the Chamber's been in presenting business issues in the Commonwealth. For 30 years, I've been a member of the Chamber of Commerce and had the chance to be on the National Association of Manufacturers as a board member, representing Virginia's small businesses. So it's indeed, the Chamber has done just an outstanding, wonderful job on behalf of all the Virginians and particularly Virginia's businesses. As Barry said, I'm the only veteran that's in the race right now, and I'm also the only member of the candidates here. The 4 candidates has actually spent my entire life in Virginia, with the exception of my military service and my parents' military service. Grew up in Northern Virginia, played on the Potomac River, and went to the Naval Academy, and subsequently reassigned down here, and a few years at Long Beach, and right back here. As Barry mentioned, I'm also the only businessman that's in the race, and I mean, true businessman in Virginia here that started a business. Started it from scratch, a little company called Earl Industries. We started going downriver fixing ships. Grew the company to 100 people before I sold it. It ultimately grew to 1,000 people and was purchased by a major defense contractor. Had a non-compete on me for a few years and took that opportunity to run for office, and been doing that ever since. And the non-compete came off. I bought another little yard. It had about 25 employees, and I grew that to about 140 employees. So I know a little bit about job creation, I know a little bit about business, and I know a little bit about what it takes to be here in Virginia. You know, all politicians, I think they talk the talk. We all recognize, every one of us that's running for office has recognized that economic development and job creation is really the #1 issue here in the Commonwealth, indeed all over the nation. But I think it's important that you have going to talk the talk, you should have walked the walk. And just the feeling of coping with it day in and day out. And I sold that business a year ago, June. And part of the rationale for selling that business was it was government inspector after government inspector coming in the door. Just the total attitude shift of those people that walked in your door, from we're here for your inspection to I know you're doing something wrong and we're going to find it. If you haven't been there, you haven't felt it, you haven't seen it, you don't know what needs to be corrected. I've watched and witnessed, and then the next guy that comes in is your healthcare guy, saying, oh, here's your new health insurance premiums. You make those difficult decisions of increasing the copay on those people that work for you. You know what that means to them and their families, increasing the premiums, trying to find a way to provide them health insurance and at the same time cope. All of those kinds of issues you deal with day in and day out. And I carried that experience, and I believe that's why I have an A+ rating with the Chamber of Commerce. That I walked with when I came up to Richmond. I carried those experiences with me, but quite frankly, I think, ladies and gentlemen, it's given me that opportunity to really formulate a plan that I think will go a long way to moving Virginia forward. And you look and you say to yourself, you know, what was probably the biggest positive economic development thing that I've seen in the last 30 days? And I believe it's the election of Donald Trump. I was proud to be a campaign co-chairman when the Trump campaign called me, and I have to be honest with you, I supported another candidate during the primary season. That candidate didn't win. After the convention, the Trump campaign called me and said, would you be a co-chair? And I said, absolutely, because I recognize and I've seen the regulation coming, and it almost has accelerated. For those in business have seen this acceleration of regulation coming out of Washington. And I understood that if we didn't get a president who was going to pick the Supreme Court would sign off on those regulations and basically turn over the running government to the bureaucrats and not to the elected officials that it should be under. And so that's why I was so proud to jump on board the Trump campaign, and I'm so glad for this country that the conclusion of the election was the way it turned out. But I think we need to look, now that this, and I feel it, it's almost like a yoke has been lifted off of business all over, the positive attitude. Certainly you've seen it in the response to the stock market. I think those understand what's going on and understand. So the question becomes then, how can we capitalize here in Virginia on this new vision, this new optimism that I feel throughout in the business community? And I think there's a number of things that we need to look at. First of all is, what are the core responsibilities of government? What are those things that you all cannot do for yourselves? And certainly I think two that jump out to mind right away are transportation and education. You've heard a lot of folks talk about it. You've heard, you know, 3 other speakers, so I'll try to delve into it just a little bit more. You know, I was proud to have been the head negotiator on behalf of the Senate for that transportation bill that it was historic in terms of we actually played catch up from not addressing that issue since 1987. And I'll tell you, it was probably one of the most difficult challenges that I had as a legislative experience, is not just bringing Democrats and Republicans together to get a bill that really did something, but bringing House and Senate members together to bring a bill that actually resulted in some real improvements in transportation you see going on all over the Commonwealth. But when you look around and you say to yourself, and we just heard North Carolina is eating our lunch, North Carolina is eating our lunch, they are. When you cross the border and you look at Danville and you look at Martinsville and you look at the problems that they're experiencing in those areas, you begin to understand that North Carolina made the investment in transportation that we did not. And when you go to Southside Virginia, and certainly we talk about coal, and no one outside of those representatives in the coal region has done more for coal in the last 25 years than myself. Been a hard advocate for all things dealing with energy, but particularly coal. When you talk to them, their number one issue down there right now is the Coalfields Expressway. These are projects that we do not have the funding for. So as this campaign goes forward with, I'm going to talk about not the incremental changes in transportation that we worked on 2 years ago, but really a transformational change in transportation. The roads that need to be constructed, but then again, the roads that need to be constructed to accommodate the technology that we know is coming down the road that will work the transportation system through. And another area is education, and a couple of the previous speakers have touched on it a little bit, but something I worked very, very, very hard on over the years is career technical education. I tried to, in the old George Allen analogy, throw the long bomb initially. I said, why don't we make career technical education a standard of learning? Why don't we make it an SOL? And to replace another SOL. Well, we were able to push forward industry credentials that you see now on these high school diplomas, but we haven't gotten there. If I have the honor and privilege of serving you as your governor, we're going to make career technical education an SOL. And that's so important, because last night an algebra teacher came up to me and she goes, keep pushing that, keep pushing that. I have students that will never get algebra, never understand it. But we need to get them opportunities. We need to get them pathways to employment. We need to show those things. That's the kind of things that are going on in our schools. And quite frankly, that's the kind of employees that so many businesses in Virginia want and need. We talked a lot, we made a lot of progress in terms of what we do in our community colleges, more tailoring our community colleges towards the needs of the community, particularly in turning out the types of skill sets. We got a ways to go. And one of the things I very much want to see is our state programs, those that we have, whether they're in the community college or on the outside, that they're tailored so that we can get the veterans' benefits applied to those programs, so that the training costs are paid for by the veterans who served their nation so long and have that opportunity to use their veteran benefits for a job. You see, we have veterans leaving the military every day in Virginia. I don't want to lose those people. Those are the talented men and women that served our nation, that have the skill sets, that knows what 730 means, and I know a lot of you have to deal with employees that don't quite understand what 730 means, and do those kinds of things. Those are the skill sets we want. We need to capture those people, and we need to be able to use their veteran benefits for the training programs, for the jobs available today in Virginia. You see, I don't blame Virginia business. There's plenty of jobs opening. We don't have the people qualified. So do you blame the job creators? No, you look at the education system and say, these are the fundamental fixes. And ladies and gentlemen, you have a lot more ideas, and I want to be your conduit to put those ideas into implementation, because that's what it's all about. A lot's been said about regulation. Let me delve into regulation a little bit. About 14 years ago, a legislator put in a bill called the Joint Commission on Administrative Rules. It allowed us the opportunity, because we felt as a legislature, we cede legislative writing authority over to the executive branch without ever looking at it again. It's what's going on in Washington. So we put this into place, and we have the power to suspend a regulation prior to its taking effect. We've added on some duties. I actually got Mark Warner to sign the bill, which was a legislative achievement in and of itself, I can assure you that. But we have been fighting it. Long before regulations was sexy, I understood what it meant, because I was in business and I understood what it meant. We have an opportunity now with the president, and I intend to hold his feet on the fire, and I hope I have the opportunity to serve you as a governor to really hold his feet to the fire on doing that. So much of tied up right now. You want to light this economy off in Virginia, start issuing permits right away. I mean, I can think of many permits. Dominion and Virginia Natural Gas have an $8 billion project pipeline waiting on permits out of the federal government. just that one investment alone. But when you start talking to localities, they have investment in dollars after dollars waiting on getting permits. This is ridiculous. This has gotten out of control, and it's got to be reeled back in. I want to hold the president's feet to the fire. I supported him when he ran for office, and I want to bring it home and make sure that we implement these programs to put Virginia back to work again. We talk a little bit about tax reform. It's a very difficult subject to talk about. We've wrestled with it for those in the General Assembly oftentimes, and this is where you have to be very, very careful. There are winners and there are losers. And that's part of the difficulty of when you move tax reform. Yes, it needs to be done. The overall tax reduction, particularly in the corporate level, needs to be revisited. We need to be competitive with our fellow states. It's one of those issues that I've supported in the past and will continue to support. I believe that the economic activity and the stimulus associated from that will more than make up for the revenue lost as we try to grapple with balancing the books in Virginia. We talked a little bit about that, but one of the things that I really want to talk about is one of the issues that goes on. We have regulatory agencies in the state, and I talked a little bit about the attitude shift of these inspectors that come in. What we need in our regulatory agencies in the state is a business development office, in addition to regulators that come in and inspect. An office that will come in and assist, particularly to small businesses. Large businesses got it, they have the overhead, they have the capital to follow it. But to understand the rules and regulations, the 35, 40,000 pages, I don't know, grows every year, to be able to understand those rules and understand what you're supposed to do. We shouldn't be holding people up initially on those rules. How many have been through an OSHA inspection in here? There's a few hands going up. I mean, I've watched OSHA inspections at my company go from we're coming in, let's see if we have any safety problems, to I gotta fine you, well, let's see how much money we can make, and we'll come back and negotiate it. I mean, this is not what government and government inspections are about. We have requirements. We need a level playing field. We can't let people be sliding and put themselves in a more competitive position to those that are following the rules. But at the same time, we need to regulate the industry and bring it back in line and do those things. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll close by just saying this, that you have an opportunity. I think there's some clear distinctions between the candidates. What this election's all about, what this election, the primary June 13th, is all about, is you're hiring somebody to run this state for you. So I ask you to look at everybody's background, look at the business backgrounds, look at what they're saying, and look at the issues they're talking about, and make your selection. Because our state's too important to not make sure that we hire the best person available to do the job. Thank you all very, very much. I appreciate everything.